Howdy, this is Lemmy with RevZilla, here to talk to you today about motorcycle lubrication on another 2-minute lesson. Now, if you're not really familiar with what points your motorcycle should be lubricated, you can find a lot of the information in your owner's manual. It'll tell you what to lubricate and how often to lubricate it. If you have a factory service manual, you can go in there and they'll often tell you what lubricants to use and how to lubricate the particular item in question in many cases. However, if you don't have access to either of those things, or you just want a rough idea on what things will actually need a little bit of grease or oil in your bike, I can sum it up for you quickly in one sentence. If it pivots, slides, or rolls, you probably want to have some lubricant on there. Now, we can talk about a couple of important items. The first and probably most oft lubricated item on a motorcycle is going to be the cables, clutch cable, throttle pull, throttle push. If you like your cables to operate smoothly, you're going to want to keep them well lubricated. You can use a fancy cable lubing tool like this one, or you can go with my favorite cheapskate option, which is simply to cut the corner off of a Ziploc bag, rubber band it around your cable, and let gravity do the rest of the work for you. Now, while we're up there on the bars, there's another item too that can really benefit from a lot of lubrication, and that's your lever pivot points. Not just the pivot points themselves, but also the perches they reside in. Getting some grease in there can help those levers operate smoothly. Especially if you're a rider who is sensitive to difficult clutch pull, making sure those items are operational and lubricated to their fullest will help those items work smoothly. Now, if we move down to the bottom side of the bike, there's some other pieces that probably need some lubrication as well. I'm thinking specifically right now of stand pivot points, both side stand as well as your center stand. You're going to want to clean these really well before you lubricate them, simply because they tend to catch a lot of road grime and gunk. And then once you get them all clean, lubricating them will help them to operate well. A sticky stand can be a real problem. In the case of a center stand, it can also be a safety issue as well. Now, while we're on the bottom side of the bike, one area I see constantly neglected for a lot of people is swing arm bearings. Swing arm bearings really do need to be lubricated frequently. This goes doubly so, especially if you're on an off-road machine. Firstly, those of you on off-road machines are riding through the dirt. Dirt tends to kind of mix in with that grease and form a grinding compound that it just eats away at the bearings or bushings that you have in your swing arm. The other reason it's important to pay attention to these too is because off-road riders are always going through water crossings, and water can tend to flush away that grease, leaving no lubricant in there at all. That's not a good situation. The final point too, I think that's important, is to remember that your brakes also need a little bit of lube from time to time. You want to use a brake specific lubricant on your brake slide pins. Now, a lot of riders will simply do this when they're performing a standard brake service. However, if you don't ride your bike often, or it's been a while since you did a brake service, that grease can actually dry up. It may make sense to kind of pop your calipers apart and throw a dime's worth of brake specific grease in there. It'll make things function a lot better and prevent you from prematurely wearing out your brakes. So at this point, you should know just a little bit more about lubricating some of the points on your motorcycle. Hopefully you feel confident enough to get out in the garage and attack it yourself. Make sure that you subscribe to so you can catch videos just like this 2-minute lesson, as well as a lot of the other ones we put out at RevZilla.com. I'm Lemmy. I'm out of here.